my dad has like this crazy intuition, and like he knew something was up. He knew I was fucking up. And that morning, I had this like gym bag, and I was leaving the house to go rob a jewelry store, and I was acting like I was going for a workout. And I was gonna go for a run, and I was gonna go to the gym, and that's why I had my gym bag and shit. And I like said bye, or maybe I was rushed, or I don't really remember the interaction I had in the house or in the kitchen, but I said goodbye and I went to leave, and my dad followed me out into the garage, and I had my back turned to him as I'm walking out towards the driveway, and he's standing at the door, and he says, "Kevin," and I didn't respond. And he said, "Kevin, stop," and I stopped, and I kept looking forward because I was being stubborn, and he said, "Kevin, what's wrong?" And I said, "Nothing." And he said, "Kevin, I know something is wrong, and I want to help you. I can help you, but I can't help you unless you talk to me. You need to tell me what's going on. It's not too late." And I lied, and I said everything was fine, and I blinked a tear out of my eye, and I walked away. And I just left my dad hanging. And he knew something was wrong. And it was like my last opportunity to just to share everything and walk away. And I didn't. My name is Kevin Papuga, Kevin Andrew Papuga II. I was born and raised in Pontiac, Michigan, or born in Pontiac, Michigan, raised in White Lake, Michigan. Went to Holly School District, graduated from high school in 2009. Um, Went to the MDOC in 2013 till 2019. Uh, 34 years old right now. I've been out for almost as long as I was in, actually almost to the day. I'm getting up to that. I did 70 months, and yeah, I'm almost 70 months out. Um, what else did you ask? What I do?
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And we can see big Wayne State regalia in the background.
Yeah, I work at Wayne State. I That's kind of part of the whole story of like reinventing myself in prison and realizing that life is just a series of choices and consequences. Um, oh yeah, sorry.
Look at me, man.
Well, I forget.
It's
We can
fine.
redo that part
No,
though.
you can switch back and forth.
Are
It's
you
fine.
sure? Well, yeah, my bad. Um, but yeah. So Wayne State is like kind of my life. I started off as a student there and a student employee, and I knew that higher ed was like my calling. That's where I was going to be able to kind of apply everything that I learned in prison and open myself up to, where I could learn every day and be a student of life and continue to be a student of philosophy and be a student of intergenerational communication and storytelling via public relations, and turn that into a career. So advising was kind of the first logical step for me, based on what I did as a student employee. I was kind of like a pseudo advisor.
Mm.
I was a transfer student ambassador. Uh, Kind of have like a pretty dope transfer story actually that takes place like 20 days out of prison, but it's kind of a long story to catch like all like the details of it. But essentially, when I first came home, I had all this opportunity at like a second chance. I had a ride to Wayne State University. I had just gotten a 4.0 from Jackson College, just doing general studies. I didn't want to do business because I didn't really care about money. Money wasn't like my main motivating factor. Like I wanted to do something that I was like passionate about and something that I could make a difference in. And I wanted to do it in an area that I could make a difference in. And like part of my whole philosophy is knowing where you've been and appreciating where you are so you can anticipate where you're going. And at that stage of the journey, just coming home from prison and knowing where I had been, that I had been in prison, and knowing what I did to go to prison, and how I was just like really this just very unconscious individual that really didn't have a lot of strength of character to make the appropriate choices when I knew I needed to. And so yeah, I had this opportunity to go back to school at Wayne State, college of my choice in the city of my choosing, because I wanted to be a part of like these Detroit Renaissance vibes that are kind of happening and this revitalization of Detroit. Um, and man, I made my way down there for an admitted students day with my parents, 10 days out of prison. I was 28 years old and I had both my parents with me. It was hilarious. They were so proud. It was so cute. Um, and at that admitted students day, there was a breakout session for transfer students, which I attended because I was a transfer student. And the person that was running that session, his name was Mike Quattro, and he was the director of educational outreach at Wayne State University. And he invited every transfer student there to go to this event called Transitions 2.0. And again, I wanted to learn from the past. In the past, I would not have gone above and beyond. I wouldn't have tried to be a part of an extracurricular event just to do it. And so that's what I wanted to do. This time I wanted to be involved. I wanted to, get my way in on campus and be a meaningful part of campus, not just like a passive part. And so I took him up on this and I went to this Transitions 2.0 event, and it was like, I could look up the exact date, but probably like 20 days outside of prison. I know it wasn't a month yet. And on my way down to the city to go to this event by myself, I had some very old Kevin thoughts. I was definitely thinking that like it would be really easy to just go down to Detroit and go to Belle Isle, walk around, bomb around the city for the day or something, and then just like lie to my family about it and be like, yeah, it was just an event. Like it was okay. Like it was what it was. Like no big deal. Wasn't that meaningful or impactful or whatever. And I just thought like if I do that, I'm just shortchanging myself. Like nobody wins in that situation. I just look like an idiot and then I make other people look dumb by lying about it. And so I didn't do that. I went to the event. I kind of fought my fears. I pushed past my comfort zone and I had no idea what I was walking into. I walked into an event of over 200 higher education professionals with, including me, 7 undergraduate students. So 6 others. And we were there primarily to share the story about how we transferred to Wayne State University from a 2-year institution. So this whole conference, Transitions 2.0, was to solve the question, how do we better help our transfer students? So I show up, my whole transfer story had to do with prison. And if I'm going to be authentic, which I'm going to be, I'm going to tell that story. Within 10 minutes of being in this conference, I had a picture board drawn and I had a microphone in my hand and I was explaining my picture board about being a mediocre high school student, graduating with a 1.6 GPA, talking my way out of everything, only really caring about athletics, making the horrible, horrible series of choices that led me to the ultimate bad choice of going to prison, which led me to the ultimate realization that life is just a series of choices and consequences. And if I wanted different consequences for reality, I needed to make different choices. And I began to do those things, which ultimately led me to transferring and coming to Wayne State. I had no idea how the audience was going to receive this. And to my astonishment, I was met with a standing ovation. It was wild. It was humbling. It made me lose my breath. 10 minutes later, there was a breakout, a little recess in the morning's activities. And this man came up to me and he seemed important. He had a tie on and glasses and he just seemed, yeah, he seemed important. And he thanked me for my story and my honesty and just he's said he had admiration for me or something like that. And he offered me a position at the university. He said I would be a great transfer student ambassador.
I remember you telling me that. I remember you telling me this story. That was crazy when you told me that.
Well, the crazy part is that fucking, excuse my language, we're in a half hour later, we're in a different breakout session, and I'm in a different conference room, and I'm sitting at this table with this woman, and we're working on this project for that individual breakout room. And I don't remember what the project was specifically, but it was something about like policy for transfer students, and she offered me a job at Wayne State. She liked the conversation we were having, and she liked my story, and she thought I would be great for this position. I don't remember the position, but she offered me one. And then later on, towards the end of the day, the original guy that invited me to the event, Mike Quattro, the director of educational outreach, also offered me a job at the university. So I had 3 different job offers, like 20 days out of prison, all at Wayne State. And I come to like the very end of this day, and all 3 individuals were all trying to introduce me to each other for the same exact job. It was the important looking fellow was like a top 5 person at the university.
He's a
Then you could just tell he had like this air about him. Like when you met him, his name was Ahmad Azzedine. He's a brilliant man. But so he was the first one, and then Joe Baines was the manager of the Transfer Student Success Center. She offered me the same position, and Mike Quattro, her director, offered me the same position. So they were all in line with each other, and at the end of the day, they're all trying to introduce me to each other because they all thought I was somebody different. And it's a brilliant little coincidence. So I got hired on the spot, didn't even need to interview for the position, and I was working for Wayne State before I even started going to school there. And the rest is kind of just history. I networked really well during my undergrad. I was given the opportunity to become the commencement speaker of my graduating class. Advising was the next logical step after being a transfer student ambassador. But I guess I wanted to share that little part of the story because I know eventually in this interview we're going to get to resources. And my best resource in that situation in my mind was myself, because I had opportunity. I had the opportunity to go to school. I had the opportunity to go to this event. I had the opportunity to fuck off. I had multiple opportunity points. But I chose to use myself to get where I needed to go. Not to where maybe I wanted to go at a certain point in my life, or what was comfortable for me to do. I had to push past my comfort zone by utilizing that intellect that I gained in prison, that insight that I gained in prison, of knowing how to do what's best for me, regardless of the circumstances or the opportunities available.
Mm-hmm. I remember when you told me that story about the Wayne State thing, about getting the job. It was on the phone. I was still inside.
Yeah.
That was pretty dope. And to see now you're in a position to where you're essentially you've essentially been, I mean, at least the way I see it, you've been given the reins to kind of steer with your expertise.
Well, now I'm a project coordinator. So I went from advising to the Center for Behavioral Health and Justice. So in 3 years, I moved my way out of the academic side of higher education into the behavioral health programmatic side of higher education, because good programming saved my life. And so, now it's just crazy that 3 years later, and only 5.5 years out of prison, I'm a jail diversion project coordinator.
So what does that mean, jail diversion project coordinator?
So I work for the Center for Behavioral Health and Justice. We are a crossroads of behavioral health and community mental health inside higher education. And we have several different initiatives. One of the initiatives that I work on is jail diversion, which means we work with counties and we provide technical assistance for those counties to provide mental health services and even help implement policies to change and reform the way that people do time in those counties. So whether it's coming up with programming for them to actually be diverted from jail, or whether it's coming up with the ability for that specific county jail to have better mental health resources for their inmates so they can actually get scored with their serious mental illness and with their co-occurring disorders, so we can actually get that data so we can show the need for more mental health services.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll save the rest of this topic because I feel like going any further, we're just gonna start delving in. We're not gonna get to who you are as an individual.
I mean, to be honest, bro, like that is a really good like example or like idea of who I am as a person. Like this whole roundabout story of like me getting hired at Wayne State to like cut into the chase of like where I am now, because
that's
like
where it started.
It's where it started, and it's where it kind of ended, and it's where I wanted to be, and it because like when I first started at Jackson College, I had this really, really cool professor that taught FYS, first year seminar. I got to teach that class 2 years ago. I was so proud. That was my first college class I ever taught.
Did we take that class together?
We didn't take it together. I took it at MTF.
I remember that class.
So,
yeah, I took it at Carson
I forget this dude's name, but he was a high school teacher in Muskegon. He taught at one of the Muskegon high schools. Guy? No, white guy. Oh. White guy, real feminine, like had like glasses, not that matters, but like he just like he was a pretty feminine man to be teaching in Muskegon public schools, right? And he kind of had a hard time, and he let us know that he had a hard time. Like kids would make fun of him, and like he couldn't get the kids in line, and kids didn't want to learn from him. And so when he came into prison to teach us, bro, like this like reinvigorated this man in his like mid-30s, right? He was around men, people that wanted to learn from him, that were eager to learn, right? And his undergrad degree, or one of his undergrad degrees or something, was psychology, and he never got to teach psychology because he took this high school job and he was teaching like history or like something, and so he turned our first year seminar class basically into like intro to psych, like 101. Like he really just like gravitated towards like the psychological elements of each chapter of like creator mindset and like things like that. And he really like highlighted those points for us. And like one lecture or conversation that we were having, he was talking about the difference between a job, which anybody can get, right? Like we can go get a job at McDonald's tomorrow. A career, which anybody can turn any job into, right? I could career out at McDonald's. I could end up going up through the corporate chain. I could end up staying right as a fry cook or, whatever I wanted, but I could turn it into a career. And anybody can do that with any job. But like very few people like really get to like live their calling, where your work doesn't feel like a job because it feels like I was meant to do it. Like I'm happy to do it. Like I'm privileged to have the opportunity to get to live this version of restorative justice where every day I'm trying to make an impact in the little area that I can by connecting these rural jails with community mental health resources and just trying to better the system in general to meet the needs of its community members. And that just feels good to me. And it feels right because I know that I can never undo what I did to go to prison. And it's not about undoing it. It's about learning from it and trying every day to be a better person, make the world a little bit better. And so I think like my job description is a really good description of who I am as a person, because like, man, it just feels so right to be able to, dude, I don't even know, like be involved in these services from like the administrative side at like this point in my life. It's like it's really easy to fall into as like an identity right now and like not really feel like work, right? Like I'll catch myself at like 9:30 at night when I'm unwinding with TV, like going over my rural jail spreadsheets just because like I like looking at the information and I like, yeah, being involved and like feeling like I'm making a difference.
Can you describe your upbringing and how it shaped your view of the world?
Um, I mean, hindsight's 2020, but yeah, my upbringing was very uh I want to say like this beautiful balance of like chill and chaotic, right? Like I was the oldest of four kids. I am the oldest of four kids. I had three younger siblings by before my fifth birthday. So I grew up with a lot of responsibility, but we were wild. I had two younger brothers and one younger sister. We're athletes, but we would fucking play Barbies with my sister when she wanted to. Like, we were just a kind of a well-rounded, goofy family. Um, I guess like the one way that it shaped me was not taking life too seriously all the time because there was just kind of always something going on and like always like a joke that was being had, and that shaped me in both like positive ways and negative ways. But I think overall that my childhood showed me like again like kind of going in on balances a lot of what I wanted and didn't want out of life.
Well, such as.
Like my parents. Love my parents. My parents are amazing people. They also showed me how not to be great partners for each other, how not to show up for each other, right? Like my dad didn't understand the needs of my mom and how just to show up for her and to swallow his own pride. And my mom didn't really understand the needs of my dad and how to show up for him and maybe just like lay off a little bit. And really, I think that shaped me in kind of being like hyper observant and always kind of thinking about the needs of others before myself. Not always, obviously.
At what point in your life do you feel like things started to go off course?
13.
What was that?
Like early. It was like going in to freshman year of high school that summer I made varsity soccer. So I was a really good athlete. That just like always came natural to me. That was part of like my kind of like easygoing like childhood. Like my dad was athletic, my mom was athletic, and just like it just came
And how
easy.
many brothers do you got?
Two, and we were just always like and I'm the oldest of them, so like they just got better the further down they went because like my middle brother Devin always had to try to be better than me, and he had to be better than his little brother Evan. And Evan, yeah, Kevin, Devin, and Evan. Sorry about that, folks. Evan was like just the most gifted athlete in the family. He's the biggest, the strongest, the just the most athletic. So Devin really had like a hard time trying to always be better than Evan and to kind of like outshine me. Um, and I would say that so I was a soccer player through and through and a football kicker. Devin was a soccer player through and through, but he really, I mean, he could have played any sport if like we were allowed to play like sports, like like if he could have played like football and soccer at the same time, like he probably could have been the quarterback. Like he was an athlete, and Evan was a real like triathlete. Like he played football, basketball, track and field, wrestling. He was like all state in like everything that he did. He would have been an amazing soccer player, but he chose football over soccer. Um, so yeah, very athletic family. I don't even remember the original question now.
At what point did things start to go off course?
Oh yeah, so I made varsity soccer freshman year. Started hanging out with seniors and like juniors, and I fell into peer pressure and started smoking weed. And like when I say like fell into peer pressure, I mean like actual twisted my arm peer pressure from like an older friend that I thought was a friend that wasn't really a friend. And like I used to wear Dare t-shirts to school. Like
See,
I
me
was
too.
like, dude, I
I
was
was part
like,
of that.
like I was like into it. And I went from like being a part of the Dare program and like active in the Dare program to like I couldn't even count the amount of times I smoked weed on two hands in like a week. Um, and yeah, that's just kind of where it like really fell off, and I didn't really care about being that athlete as much, and I pulled away from my siblings because didn't want Devin to start smoking weed because I was smoking weed. I didn't, like I was trying to shelter them, but it really just was like me diving into my own bad behavior and kind of forsaking them without like realizing that, which had negative repercussions on them too. Because like Devin was always like he didn't understand that, right? Like I went from being like his big brother that like played soccer with him every single day after school to being the big brother that like is stiff arming him on my way out the door, telling him like, no, you can't hang out with me and my friends. So like that stuff has like haunted me. Um, yeah.
How much did your environment, you know, friends, family, your neighborhood, impact the decisions that you made that ultimately led to you, ultimately led you to becoming a felon?
Well, I think that like ultimately like everything had its own individual piece, right? Like my family had its own piece, my friends had its own piece. Ultimately, all comes back to like my choices. But I think like the catalyst from like each one is like my family didn't talk about issues, so I didn't really know how to talk about issues. My friends just wanted to party and have fun and like be normal. And to me, that's like what normal was just like partying, having fun, and then add that with like not talking about issues. And so now I'm like only like living to like party and have fun, and I'm never talking about like my emotional issues. And that's just like a combination for like not something good. So there's like a lot more that goes into it. But I remember like one of the biggest revelations that I had was in the county jail. And so I was on house arrest for 4 months because I gave a full confession. I turned myself into the police department, gave a full confession. They deemed me not a flight risk, so they didn't arrest me. So I was able to go home a week later. I went to a court date, and then I was put on house arrest. And when I got put on house arrest, so I started smoking weed when I was like 15, 14, 15, going into freshman year. And I just became like a huge stoner, right? Dove into pills a little bit, drank, a couple times a week. Starting at like 16, 17, and started drinking like, yeah, a couple times a week. Got put on house arrest when I was 22. First time I became sober since I was 15. It was fucking crazy. I had 4 months of sobriety by the time I hit OCJ, Oakland County Jail. When I got into Oakland County Jail and I was in there for like 2 months and I was like 6 months sober, I remember thinking I had superpowers just because I was thinking clearly for the first time. Like, since my adolescence, like, it was crazy, dude. Like, I remember being like, I can articulate. I don't even know what the word articulate means, but like, I can do it. Like, it was just, it was wild, man. And like, so like one of like the early epiphanies I had in prison was just how much partying slowed me down. And when I got a clear mind, I was able to think, and then I started to do like this like emotional, um I guess, work, for like lack of a better term right now. Just like intuitively, I just started to kind of dive into these areas of hurt like in my life that like were like my fault, like hurting Devin and like pushing away, and like the things I chose, and leading up to my crime, like the things I chose and the things I didn't think about and the things I didn't process. And then I got back to what I talked about a minute ago, was like, well, of course I didn't like know how to have that conversation with myself. Like nobody ever taught me to. Like I didn't ever have those conversations growing up about my emotions, like with my mom and my dad. So like of course I couldn't have that healthy conversation with myself. And then it's like this like kind of like juxtaposition where like you can only meet another as far as you can meet yourself. So I could never meet anyone else on any like deep meaningful level because I really couldn't meet myself on any deep meaningful level. And all of this started to get unpacked like very early in my like journey of prison. So
When everything was said and done, when everything happened, and you realized that you learned that the police were looking for you, like what was that conversation that you had with your dad when you called to tell him?
I didn't call him. This was 4 months after the fact. So skip 4 months into the future. Um, we've been on the run. There was I knew that there was potential that the police were looking for me to like some extent. But
Why did you
the
run?
well, like because we robbed a jewelry store.
I don't mean. I mean, like, why? What?
No, we didn't run yet. Like I'm still
Oh,
living.
sorry.
No, I'm still living, but I'm like on the run. Like I'm like laying low.
Mm,
I'm
yeah,
like
yeah.
not like doing like normal stuff. Like I'm kind of yeah. I'm like on the lam, right? Like, um, and it's a really long and we're because we're not talking about the crime specifically right
Yeah.
now.
No.
I'm leaving a lot of detail out.
Mm,
Um, which the detail of situations like this is
yeah.
important. But so basically, skipping way too much, the mastermind of the whole thing that got full immunity from the crime got picked up and got questioned by the police and said that they didn't have anything on him and he had a lawyer and they couldn't get to us unless they went through him and like we had nothing to worry about. So I wasn't like on the run, but I
Mm,
was just like laying low. And then one morning, and I was working at Mount Holly at the time. And then one morning, two detectives went to Mount Holly on my first day off in 2 weeks, and they were going all around the mountain asking for me. I had like four people from the mountain call me and ask me why two detectives were looking for me and asking about me. And then the detectives called me, and then I hung up the phone. Then they went to my house, and then my dad called me and my dad asked me what was going on, and that two detectives showed up and asked me about it, or said that I was wanted for questioning and armed robbery in downtown Rochester. And I told him, or he told me to come home, and I told him that I wasn't coming home, that the detectives would pick me up if I went home, and that he had to meet me at this Kroger off Dixie Highway. And he agreed to come meet me, and I had I had a 1997 Chevy 1500, and he was driving a Chrysler 300. And I got out of my truck and got into his car, and I just started bawling my eyes out. And I just told him everything. I talked for like 20 minutes. I just told him as much as I could tell him. And at the end of it, he just like stared at me for like 10 seconds. And then he just said, "Did you really do that? Did you really rob a jewelry store?" And I was crying. I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Then you know what you need to do." And I said, "Yeah, I need to run." And he said, "No, you don't need to run. You need to turn yourself in." And I said, "No, Dad, like my truck is packed. Like I'm ready to go. Like I had this whole plan of like driving north through Wisconsin and like trading my truck for a car and then driving the car into Montana and trading the car for a truck and fucking then driving into fucking and I had like some cash and I had like all my truck already packed up with like all my fucking shit and like this is the way the like felon mind works, like this escape plan, you know, and fucking and I was just gonna like pay for a fucking little hunting cabin in the middle of Montana for fucking $500 cash for the winter and fucking make it happen, you know? And like that's the way my mind worked, and I really thought that was like the best idea at the time. And my dad was just like, "You're an idiot." Like, no, dude, I didn't raise somebody that runs from their problems. I didn't raise some. What are you talking about, Kevin? Like, you sound crazy. Like, you need to turn yourself in right now. Like, I didn't raise a pussy, and I didn't raise a bitch, and I didn't raise somebody that runs from their problems. What, dude, if you did this, you need to turn yourself in. And so I did. I went home and I smoked a joint and I took a shower, and I drove myself to the Rochester Police Department, and I went to the buzzer, and they said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "My name's Kevin Papuga, and I think there's some detectives looking for me." And I went into the police department not intending to give a full confession. I'm not a saint. I didn't go there to like completely turn myself in. I went there to thinking like I was smarter than them or something, and like I was gonna like find out like what they knew, something stupid, and like they slapped down this file in front of me that had like Andy's picture, my picture, the other dude's picture, and Andy, like all of Andy's statements that he'd given them the last like 4 months, and like I gave a full confession in like 5 minutes. I was like, yeah, you got the right one.
How did the justice system treat you during your trial and sentencing process?
Good and bad. Bad because I lawyered up in that initial interview with the cops 3 times, and because I used the terminology lawyer up, they didn't need to give me a lawyer, and it was dismissed. It was thrown out in court, which is bullshit, because that confession shouldn't have counted because I did try to get a lawyer 3 times. And then after the fact, because I essentially, no, I don't want to get arrogant. We might need to omit some of this. But essentially, because we embarrassed the Rochester Police Department, is why they wouldn't omit the confession. Because it was the first armed robbery in downtown Rochester in like 30 years. And it was a mile away from the police department at 11:30 on a weekday afternoon. And they were like on patrol in the area, and like we got away. And so they were like, as a department, not thrilled.
They weren't happy with that shit.
So yeah, so fair and not fair. That wasn't cool. But then I got house arrest for 4 months, which was cool. Because, I mean, I had an armed robbery. Like, they probably shouldn't have given me house arrest. Like, if I was a black dude from Detroit, I wouldn't have got house arrest. They would have put me in a county jail.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I guess, lucky or privileged. The prosecutor saved me at the end. My attorney shit the bed. And the prosecuting attorney really stepped up and, like, upheld the law to its highest extent. And, made sure I didn't get railroaded with 108 months, and I only got 70 months, which was at the maximum of my current guidelines, but it could have been, like I said, it could have jumped to 108. So overall, honestly, man, like the justice system really did me right. Like I think I'm a rare case when it comes to that. Like a lot of people feel hard done by the justice system, and I feel like my judge, like I don't know if it's just my faith and like his faith like lined up together or like how like that works, but like he gave me the most appropriate amount of time that like I could have asked for. Like 70 months, like he gave me a crazy tale. He gave me a 50-year tale. Which is nuts, but he was proving a point. Like, yo, dude, like I'm kind of looking out for you right now, but it could be horrible if you choose to continue to fuck up. And I say it was the appropriate amount of time for me because 5 years, 10 months is a little bit of a stretch of time. It's not like just a year or like 2 years. It's not just 90 days of boot camp where you might not really learn a lesson, or you might be like, oh, I'm going to be home in a year. I can just fuck off or whatever. Like it was a serious amount of time, right? Like I was like given like all my 20s to prison. Like, but at the same time, it wasn't so much time that like I became bitter, because that's really easy to do, and we've seen that happen to a lot of men that they go and they learn the lesson and they learn everything that they can learn from that situation, and then nothing. Then you just have to sit there and you have to kind of silently suffer while you are now stagnant because you took everything out of the situation you can take from it. I feel like I took everything out of the situation in 3 years, 3.5 years. And then I had like 2.5 to 3 years to like apply everything. And like that was paramount. Like that was like everything to me. Like don't get me wrong, I wanted to go home after that 3.5 years. Like I felt ready. I wrote my judge. I gave like he loved the way I articulated the letter, the way I did my time. He agreed for me to go to boot camp. He said, literally, I still have the letter. It was like he granted me permission for boot camp pending the MDOC approval. And the MDOC denied me because you can't walk it down to 36 months. You have to be sentenced 36 or less.
So the judge says you had to do this amount of time, and then the judge, knowing how much time he sentenced you to, approved for you to go to boot camp. I'm assuming once you met the specific criteria for boot camp.
Yeah, once I got underneath 36 months, I wrote my judge and asked him for permission to go to boot camp per sentencing guidelines.
That's the correct way. That's how you apply to boot camp if you're not automatically.
And I didn't know that you had to be sentenced under 36 months. I thought you could just walk it down to 36 months because, like, why not? But apparently, per the MDOC, you can't.
So despite what a judge said about your sentence, the department just said, no, you're going to do that last 3 years.
Yeah. But, and as like shitty as that sounds, and I know I'm not trying to stick over the department, but like that time to apply everything I learned in prison, like made me the man I am. Like I grew up more in the first 3 years of prison than I did in the first 23 years of my life. But like that last 3 years of prison showed me how to apply it in a way that like I don't think I could have applied it otherwise.
How was your perspective? What was your perspective on prison and the criminal justice system? And how did your interaction with it change your perspective?
Had zero perspective. Zero perspective. I lived a very ignorant life before. I mean, I didn't have family that ever went to prison. I didn't have friends that went to prison. I didn't have a perspective on it. It was never part of my life. It wasn't part of my radar. It wasn't part of my life trajectory. If you would have told me when I was a 17-year-old kid in high school, like, yo, dude, if you don't like change your arrogant ways, if you don't grow up, if you don't start being like intentional in life, like you're gonna end up in prison, I would have laughed in your face because I wasn't like a criminal. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was just like a kid that always pushed boundaries. And what was the original question?
Well, what changed about your?
Oh yeah, I didn't really have a perspective before. So like when I went in, so I didn't really have a perspective. I didn't have a hate for police officers. I didn't have a hate for authority. I guess in some sense, I never really liked like weak authority. It was like coaches, I guess is what I mean by that. Like I didn't really like shitty coaches, but so like when I went to prison, nothing really changed. I guess I just kind of took it as like, this is my opportunity to change. Like, this is my opportunity to grow. This is my opportunity to be accountable and to be responsible. And I need to like know how to like navigate this situation really regardless of anyone else, whether they were in a position of authority over me or whether they were an inmate doing time with me, right? Like my goal was to kind of just make the least amount of waves as possible and grow personally and pass through as negatively unscathed as I could.
You said pass through as negatively unscathed?
Yeah.
So, how?
Because like I guess like the only expectation like before, not the only, but like directly leading up to prison when I was on house arrest, and like everybody in my family still thought I was gonna get boot camp and just go straight home, and like I realized like that wasn't gonna happen. I just remember thinking that like I was never gonna make friends in prison. You know what I mean? Like I remember thinking that like yeah, like there's gonna be like no one good in prison. Like no one is like gonna yeah, like I'm just gonna pass through as like unscathed as possible. Like I'm not gonna like I'm not bringing anything with me like on the other side. And man, I learned about the law of attraction real quick. Like knows like, right? Good finds good, bad finds bad. Like that's what prison is. And I attracted a lot of good in prison, and I met a lot of beautiful men and women volunteers. But yeah, it was crazy. So that changed. I guess that was a perspective that I had leading up to prison that was definitely transformed.
It was about the people inside.
Yeah,
I guess that leads to
absolutely.
my next question: is what's the biggest misconception you feel people have about those who are incarcerated?
Ooh, I have two.
Mm.
One of the biggest misconceptions um, I think that people have about people that are incarcerated is just that they don't matter. Like they don't think about them, so they don't matter, right? Like out of sight, out of mind. That's I guess was like my conception, like before,
Hmm.
like my concept, like before prison. Like I just isn't. Yeah, dude. It wasn't part of my life. It wasn't part of my world, so they didn't matter. Like and now, I mean, I can't really stop thinking about some of the amazing people I met that are never gonna go home. And I can't stop hearing some of the stories about men that were wrongfully convicted that spent 30 plus years, that spent their lives, that died, that, like, so like for the conception, the like idea that like prisoners don't matter is bullshit, and pisses me off. And the other opposite extreme to that is that like, kind of like this pie in the sky view of like everybody's redeemable and like everybody can be saved, and like kind of like these people that like will just like write like anybody, and like prisoners are like puppy dogs or something that you can just like get from a rescue, and like everything's gonna be all right, because yeah, dude, like some people are meant to be locked up, and some people are actually like mass manipulators and like master manipulators, and they just like can't stop. And unfortunately, yeah, I've seen like way too many women fall victim to a guy that was just doing time and just wanted somebody to talk to and wanted somebody to put money on their books. And not to say that those women didn't get something out of it too, because like they got a companionship, they got somebody to like spend time with. um but I've seen like a lot of people just like hurt from like that situation. um so yeah, two misconceptions. One, prisoners do matter. Two, not everyone's redeemable. Sorry.
Looking back, do you think there were resources or interventions that could have prevented your incarceration or your continued path down that road?
Yeah, dude, I think a real good ass whooping when I was like 16. Like I'm not saying that
I
would have
think we
changed.
all
Like
agree
I'm
that
not saying that
sometime.
would have changed everything, but like there was like this one time when I got caught shoplifting, from Bass Pro Shop.
Bass
I
Pro
like
Shop.
hunting stuff, and I was 16 years old, and it was underneath $100, so it was
Make sure
not.
it falls under the misdemeanor
That's what it
category.
was. So it was underneath the misdemeanor. So they took me to the little jail in Great Lakes Crossing Mall, and they couldn't get a hold of my parents. So they're gonna take me to Greenfield Village for the night. And I last resort call my Aunt Jerry, and my Aunt Jerry comes and picks me up from the mall, and the police release me to her, or the mall cops or whatever they were released me to her, and they were actually cool. They actually gave me a chew when I was 16, and it was like funny because I was like, bro, I'm not even 18. Like you guys are like breaking the law for me right now, and you're like getting me in trouble for breaking the law. Like, well, we're not really getting you in trouble because like we didn't even file charges. Like you just need to pay the money back and like write this letter and like do like 10 hours of community service. And I was like, dope. But anyways, at the time when I got away with it, I thought it was cool, right? Like it was like kind of like too easy of an experience. Like I got to chew, I got to do community service at my Yaya's Focus Hope, where like I ate hot dogs and talked to old ladies all day. I wrote a letter. I'm a great writer. Always been a great writer. It was like, yeah, I didn't learn a lesson, right? And my mom, so my parents didn't pick up because they were at a sporting event for my brothers. And my mom felt so guilty that her and my dad weren't there for me in my hour of need when I'm really just being a fuckhead, right? That she like wouldn't let my dad punish me, and she like protected me. And my dad, like, cause he couldn't beat my ass and didn't know how to talk about things, like I said, like we didn't talk about like emotions or anything, didn't look at me for like 2 weeks. And that was like the worst part of that whole situation. But like I really feel like
you would have.
I think it would have set more. You know what I mean? Like I think like I probably would have thought about it. I think like I would have had a very different experience if instead of having this experience that I'm kind of like laughing about and like talking about and like remembering like the officer give me a chew and like remembering how my mom protected me, like if I remembered like going home and like dad whooping that ass, if that was like the primary thing stuck up here, right? I don't know. I'd like to think things would be like a little different, and maybe not. I'm not saying an ass whooping solves things, and I'm not like promoting beating your kids or like anything like that. But I'm saying like but I'm saying like for real, like I really believe that like a lot of most things in life are situational, and in like the right moments of time, like certain things are necessary. And I mean, obviously, I had been down like a little bad path for a minute to escalate to stealing at a Bass Pro Shop, and so this was actually everything has larger context, and I'm not blaming anyone else for my actions, but I was a people pleaser. So what happened at the store was, I took this knife just because I thought it was cool and it was easy, and it was literally like I swept it out and like put it in my pocket and like walked out of the store, and I was with this group of guys that like they couldn't believe that I stole this fucking knife. When we got into the car and like I busted this knife out, and they were just like, oh my god, like blah blah blah, like that's so crazy, like, how'd you do that? And this kid that I was with wanted this pair of bow sights that was like $70 or something, and he didn't have $70, he only had like $50 or whatever. So he was gonna give me $50 if I went back in and stole him the bow sights. And I didn't really want to do it, but I wanted to be cool, and I wanted these guys to like me. And they were all older than me. And so I went back in and stole the bow sights for this guy, which were like almost $80. And luckily that knife was a literal cheap piece of shit knife that was like $10. It was like the easiest thing in the world. It wasn't like a hard bow sight to like take out. It was like, and whatever. So I did it knowing that it was a bad idea, way harder thing to steal, way like none of it made sense, but I was doing it to fit in with these guys. And like that is like, again, like just right away, like that can just go back to my childhood of like people pleasing and not really like, yeah.
How has being labeled a felon affected your opportunities and relationships after release?
Do you want me to answer that honestly? It's been great.
Want to elaborate?
I mean, women love that I'm a felon. So, sorry, not sorry. No, but seriously, my only employment history has been at Wayne State. It's been very positive at Wayne State. I have a very good reputation at Wayne State. I have a disclaimer on my resume that talks about my felony. It's just a little, I encourage everyone I mentored to do this. Like, it's a little 2-line paragraph or 2-line sentence at the bottom of my resume that it just says, you know, the larger part of this resume is who I am today. However, there's a black mark on my resume in the form of an armed robbery, and I'm willing to discuss this upon interview. So no, dude, Wayne State's been great. Wayne State's been a blessing. Wayne State has been the best like opportunity / resource that I could have asked for. So I really don't have any complaints when it comes to like work with the felony for me personally. I understand that like I kind of have like a sweet spot felony.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not a CSC, which is super ostracized. It's not murder, or manslaughter or anything like that. So like I do understand that some people feel a little bit more comfortable, just because of the nature of it. Which I mean, it is still a violent crime, but
Do you feel as if that part of your background has been to your benefit in these areas?
um, I definitely don't think I would be in the position I am today without my background. And yeah, 100%. Like most of like my consulting roles, and even like this role that I have right now as a jail diversion coordinator, like primarily come from my lived experience of incarceration and the way I navigated the carceral system. I did 70 months with, I did 69 months without a ticket. Miss Smith gave me a shower ticket at the end of my bit, but like
Jackson.
Jackson, whatever. Anyways, fired me up.
The nicest.
She wasn't nice to me.
So butthurt over that ticket.
Yeah, because I literally had I didn't have a ticket the whole time, and she literally wrote me one just so I like couldn't say that, and I was like, why? And because I had said it to her, and she's like, like I'm gonna get you, and she got me, dude. It was unreal, super petty, but anyways, yeah, dude. I don't remember your question.
Is this as being a felon? How has it affected your life going forward?
Oh, you said has it gotten better?
I mean,
Has
oh yeah,
so
caused
like
you to take
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be in this role like I said, like yeah, pretty much everything that I'm doing right now is because of my lived experience, because I want to make a difference, because I want to live restorative justice. I mean, I wasn't a super conscious individual before I came to prison, and I'm somewhat conscious individual now, and I like to try to be like intentional in my life choices. And yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't be here today without going to prison and responding in prison the way that I did, and like yeah, learning through those situations and how to apply it moving forward. Like I mean, every skill, like even like on the yard, like knowing how to read the yard, dude. That observation skill, like, like people don't even understand how powerful that is for me in conferences. Like it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like a weird little bit of psychology that, when applied in the right way, helps you to, yeah, look at things. I can't speak in generalities. It helped me to become more objective about reality and take things less personally.
What advice would you give to someone growing up in circumstances similar to yours that led you to
talk to people? Push for those conscious conversations, even if you can't get them from family members. It's important to talk about your feelings. The one time that my dad really wanted me to open up about my feelings, the day of my armed robbery, I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to be a man in those ways. People think asking for help is a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
I think part of that is because I think the word feelings in the context it's used. I feel like sometimes people misconstrue that to mean like you're just like in your feels or something. When a lot of times I think when we're frustrated or when we do need to talk, it's not necessarily about our feelings, but like we're internally trying to work through something and we can't necessarily like figure it out, and so it's more we're looking for a second ear.
So I think personally, it's not about figuring it out and like understanding it all the time. Sometimes it's just about expressing it. Like it's about feeling it. It's about like being real with it, right? And like what's your body telling you? What's my like? And I didn't know how to like have that form of emotional intelligence. Like yeah, it's good to understand things, and yes, it's good to like figure things out, but sometimes it's even just to get it off your chest,
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't understand it until later, even if you can't unpack it for years down the road, but like express it, right? Like don't bottle things up, don't pretend they don't exist, just, you know, to appease family members or parents, even if it's what you've seen growing up, right? Like, because again, like I love my parents, I love my childhood, I love my family, I have great memories of all of them. But I just look at things a little more objectively now, and like my family didn't know how to talk about emotions. They knew how to scream, and they knew how to fight, and they knew how to cry, and they knew how to deflect, and they knew how to rug sweep really well. And I guess there's a time for those tactics, right? Like, because you can't always deal with an emotion in a moment. Sometimes you have to be stoic and then come back later. But by and large, like, talk about things. It's healthy.
What message do you have for the Hidden Nation?
Ask for help. Ask for resources. Talk to people. Ask questions. Push yourself past your comfort zone. Realize that you are your best resource.